Hi, this is Editor Troxel. In the last 3 weeks, we've started learning how to read and parse a JSON file. And so the first week, we learned what it would take to actually create the layout needed for the JSON file into Visual Studio. The second week, we learned what it would take to get it to actually run inside of Vegas. The third week, we learned how to actually do the deserialization, get the file and break it out into the classes. And so this week, we're going to actually read the data that came in and go through and process all of that data and get the files onto the timeline. So let's see how we do that. If you remember, last week, we created our base path and our empty JSON file, and then we opened a new file dialog, asked for the file, and if they clicked on OK, then we get the actual file name, and we read all of the file into that JSON file, and then we created a root object variable called root, which we deserialized from the JSON file that we read. Now we need to go through each one of the sources and figure out what type it is, what kind of track we're going to need, and what files go on those tracks. And so here's how we do that. We're going to start by going for each source, and it's a type source. If you remember, our type up here is source, which has our clips, our name of the source, and our type of the source. And then up here we had our clip, which has our file name and our start time. And if you remember, our root object was just a list of sources and the start time. So to go through the list, we're going to have to go for each variable of type source, name source, and root.sources. Then I created me a couple of dummy variables, one called new vid track, which I just set equal to null, one called new audio track, which I also set to null. The first one is a video track type, the second one is an audio track type. Then I set one for each because I don't know which type of source this is yet. So now I'm going to add the new track if the source.type equals video. If this source, the .type, equals video, then I create me a new vid track, and I just put a number 999 here so that it would be at the bottom. If we had more than 1,000 tracks, this could be a problem. Usually that's not a problem, so I just used a big number to put it down at the bottom. And then I decided to give the track source.name. That way we will know where this source came from. And then we have to add this to our Vegas project, so myvegas.project.add, and then the new video track. If it was not a video track, we have our else here. So if it was not a video track, it had to be audio. So we have new audio track equals new audio track. Also, I used 999 to put it down at the bottom, and we gave it the source name, and then we add that track to the Vegas project. Once we get the track added, we're going to have to go through each of the clips. So for each clip, name clip in source.clips, first thing I want to do is make sure that that file exists. So if file.exist clip.file, then I want to go through and try to add it. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the media. So the media, just variable name media, equals new media, and I'm passing it clip.file. And that is the file that it's going to read. Then I need to check to see is this video or audio. So I'm going back to source.type. If source.type equals video, because we're still in this same source that we were in up here. So if source.type equals video, then I'm going to get me a media stream, which I just called stream. From media.streams, I get item by media type, and I'm looking for media type.video, and I want the first video stream. So it's 0 is what we put there. Now, as long as I found a stream, if stream does not equal null, then I want to add this event to the track. So we're doing this the same way we've done many other times. We get our video event, which is a new event, and it's going to be new video event. Then we take the new vidtrack.events.add and we add that new event. Then we create a take from the stream, and then we add the take to that new event. But this is the important part. So we're going to create a new event, and here is where we want it to start. So if you remember, we had all those numbers that were great big numbers. Now that would be a bunch of milliseconds. I tried this initially just using the clip.start, and I couldn't find it on the timeline. So I finally did a take me to the end, and it took me to the event on the timeline, but it was something like -21 hours or something. It was some weird number. So then I realized that even though these are milliseconds, you can't have that many milliseconds. You can't have 7 trillion or whatever that number is milliseconds. So I got to looking at the file a little closer and noticed that every one of those numbers were bigger than the source.start. And so I decided what we needed to do to get the true milliseconds from the beginning. Apparently, when you push start, then it creates that source start time, and then as each one of the individual sources starts recording, it records the individual start time for each one of those sources. And so what I decided to do was, let's just take the individual times minus the original time, the source time, and we'll use that for our offset. So we are getting our timecode from milliseconds, but the time that we're going to pass it is the clip start minus the root start. So remember, root is the one that was at the very bottom, and then each clip has its own individual one. And then we need to tell it how long it is. So we are going to use stream.length to get the length. If it was not video, else it was audio. So we're going to look for the stream of media type audio. Going to do the exact same thing, except we're getting an audio event. We're going to get the same timecode from milliseconds, clip.start minus root.start, and use the stream length, and then use these lines to add it to the timeline. And that's it. So let's give this a try and see how it works. So we pick our capture file, and now it has placed everything on the timeline. We should have 6 tracks, and we have 6 tracks. Now if we zoom in at the very beginning, we can see the sources are all starting at different times. It looks like they're offset just a little bit from each other. And if we look at the end, we will see that they all end at different times as well. But they should all be in sync. So it took us a little while to get there, but now we can read a JSON file. We know how to create the classes. We know how to actually deserialize the object. And we know how to now go through each one of the objects in that JSON file to pull the information back onto the timeline. Hope you found this tutorial useful. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next tutorial. Please sign up at www.JETDV.com and subscribe on YouTube to get further notifications on when new videos are presented.